Let's see that. Order, order. We'll start with questions to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Richard Quigley.
Question number 1, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, I am proud this government is investing £1 million into the Connect Fund to strengthen collaboration between communities across the UK. And Mr Speaker, I know you are a dedicated supporter of our veterans, so we'll be pleased to hear that I visited the Castle Community Trust recently in Belfast, where through this funding they are bringing together veterans in Belfast and Shrewsbury to overcome social isolation. Whatever part of the United Kingdom you are in, will you have our support to tackle shared challenges?
Richard Quigley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As an MP representing both an island and a significant veteran community, where 1 in 10 homes on the Isle of Wight West is a home to a veteran, I know how crucially effective community relations funding is. Will the Minister commit to working with Cabinet colleagues to explore adapting successful Northern Ireland GB initiatives, such as the excellent Connect Fund he mentions, so that similar tailored support can be delivered on the Isle of Wight to ensure our veterans receive the recognition and assistance they deserve?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for his question. I'm happy to speak to colleagues about the success of the Connect Fund and how it works. He should know that applications are open to anyone across the United Kingdom, provided they are working with a group in Northern Ireland, and I would be delighted to see applications from his constituents if they wish to do that.
Hannah.
Collaboration between groups across the Irish Sea is very welcome. Those relationships will always be cherished. Unfortunately, Brexit really impacted the ability of those groups to serve and support people, and that was a consequence of the failure to plan for the constitutional change of Brexit. Regardless of the Minister's own views on Northern Ireland's future, that issue is the subject of increased engagement and debate. The SDLP acknowledges that we are not at a tipping point towards a referendum, but the Secretary of State was wrong to say there's no appetite. Does he acknowledge that it is perfectly possible to work to improve the region in the here and now, while also planning for the constitutional future that is a new Ireland, as the SDLP is doing?
Yes, that's right.
The Secretary of State has been clear that currently there is no evidence that there is a majority in favour of constitutional change. Of course, we defend the principle of consent and the right of the people in Northern Ireland to determine their constitutional future. It is totally legitimate for people to advocate for the future they want to see.
Thank you,
Mr Speaker. Does the Minister agree that reported attempts to extend European Parliament observer status to politicians in Northern Ireland are bound to inflame tensions between communities in Northern Ireland and between communities in Northern Ireland and Great Britain? And will he say that the UK government will have absolutely nothing to do with this attempt to break up our United Kingdom?
Minister.
Thank you. I thank the honourable member for his question. I've seen no such proposals, and we have engagements in place with the European Union to ensure there's engagement with Northern Ireland on any matters that might impact it.
Gavin Robertson.
Mr Speaker, the Minister of State will be enjoying his opportunity to travel across Northern Ireland and see some of the wonderful groups that we have, but he knows the strength of this United Kingdom, and he knows that increasing the bonds across Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales and England are crucially important. He should know that the last government, and supported by his Labour colleagues, agreed that through the East-West Council there should be educational collaboration so that our young people can mix with one another and draw upon each other's strengths. Could he indicate how many times he believes the East-West Council has progressed that matter and what plans he has to strengthen those bonds?
Minister.
I thank him for his question. I look forward to the next meeting of the East-West Council. He'll know I met with Minister Given to discuss education matters and how we can ensure that those students in Northern Ireland have the best education possible. And I agree with him about the importance of shared bonds, and I hope we can progress that further.
Gavin Robertson.
In drawing upon the bonds of our country, he will know that in Northern Ireland, whilst we have a greater than average growth rate than the rest of the United Kingdom, our productivity gap is still there, and at the back of that, our growth is masked by an over-reliance on our public sector. His colleagues agreed in the last Parliament, and I'm sure he does now, about cross-fertilisation between the Northern Ireland Civil Service and the Home Civil Service. What plans does he have to increase our ability to draw upon expertise and to encourage secondments across this United Kingdom?
Thank you. I thank him for the opportunity to also champion the growth that's taking place in Northern Ireland with very exciting creative industries work, also the tech sector. On the opportunities for secondments and shared learning, I made the offer to the executive ministers I met last month that where we can share best practice, knowledge and learning, we should do so, and I'd be happy to take forward other suggestions he might have.
Gregory Campbell.
Number 2, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I've met with a range of businesses and representative bodies, including the Federation of Small Businesses and the Northern Ireland Business Brexit Working Group, to discuss supply chains and how the government could improve guidance and support on the Windsor Framework. I will continue to take this feedback into account as we respond to the recommendations made by Lord Murphy in his report.
Gregory Campbell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the Secretary of State for his response. Will he step up his efforts to ensure that there is no disadvantage to companies trading within Northern Ireland? And more specifically, further to that, he will be aware of the potential threat Chinese-built buses may pose. And given that there are excellent UK-made zero-emission buses built in Northern Ireland at Wrightbus, will he liaise with the Department for Transport and mayors here in GB to ensure that purchases of those buses with no security risk is infinitely preferable to those made in China?
Well, I join the honourable gentleman in drawing attention to the wonderful zero-emission buses that are being produced at Wrightbus, which I've had the pleasure of visiting, I think, 2 or 3 times. They're brilliant. One sees them on the streets in the rest of the United Kingdom, and there's a very good reason to buy UK-made buses from Northern Ireland so we can see more people travelling on them, and that is an option that is open to local authorities.
Tony Antoniazzi.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Now, the Northern Ireland Affairs Select Committee has taken evidence from Lord Murphy regarding his review, and his review of the Windsor Framework has made some very important recommendations that could support GB businesses moving goods to Northern Ireland. Can he update the House on his considerations of the Murphy review?
Well, I am continuing, Mr Speaker, to give careful consideration both to what Lord Murphy has said, the Independent Monitoring Panel, the FSB, and other recommendations. There's a lot of similarity in the points that are made about steps the government could take to provide better, easier to access guidance for businesses to enable them to move goods from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, and we will set that all out when we formally respond to his review, which we must do early next year.
Shadow Minister Mike Wood.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol says that where we experience diversion of trade, then we may take unilateral action. Now, the Secretary of State will be well aware that 3 reports in the past month have noted significant trade diversion affecting trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So can he be clear with the House? Just how much trade diversion is he willing to stomach before he uses the powers he has under Article 16?
I would say to the honourable gentleman, there are now 15,000 businesses that have registered under the UK internal market scheme. 97% of lorries moving from GB to Northern Ireland do not face any in-person checks at all. The goods are flowing, the goods are moving. It is in the end for businesses to decide to whom they sell and from where they purchase. But the Northern Ireland economy is doing extremely well, which shows that the problems that, and there are some, are not affecting its overall strength.
Dr. Breeton.
Question number 3, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
Mr Speaker, Northern Ireland's creative industries are thriving and an important source of growth, a topic I have discussed with Northern Ireland executive ministers. Whether it is Derry Girls, Game of Thrones, Trespasses, Blue Lights or Line of Duty, which has just been renewed and will be filmed in Belfast, producers choose Northern Ireland for its world-class talent and studios. To coin a phrase, Mr Speaker, it's a sector that's sucking diesel.
Mr Speaker. Disability History Month begins tomorrow, and I'm delighted that the Creative Diversity Network now reports the doubling of disabled people on and off screen since 2018 to 9% across the UK. The phenomenal BBC film An Irish Goodbye is one such example, starring Down syndrome ambassador James Martin and filmed in Northern Ireland. What is the Minister doing to ensure a further drive to double disability again on and off screen?
My honourable friend speaks with enormous experience and I know wrote an impactful report employing the changemakers. I agree that expanding opportunities for disabled people to take part in creative industries is important. As my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport often says, talent exists everywhere, but opportunity does not. That is why I'm pleased with that the Creative Industries New Entrances programme, delivered in partnership between Screen NI, the BBC and the Northern Ireland Executive, is working to broaden access for disabled actors.
Jim Shum.
Mr Speaker, can I thank the Minister for that answer and also thank him for his energy and interest in Northern Ireland. We hope to have him in Strangford shortly for a visit. Between 2019 and 2022 there was an increase in economic value by 19% for the Northern Ireland film sector. There is potential for much more. The beautiful Ards Peninsula where I live in, not because it's beautiful because I live there, it's beautiful before I ever lived there. And in my constituency of Strangford, there is potential for much more. How does the Northern Ireland Office and the Minister intend to further work with Film NI to promote the high quality and the lower costs that Northern Ireland have? We have lots to offer. Let's take advantage of it.
Shut up the movie, I think. Come on with this stuff.
If you're directing it, Mr Speaker, I look forward to my visit to Strangford. I don't see enough of the honourable member in this House. The creative industries in Northern Ireland are booming, as he says, and they're backed all of the way by this government. We have a modern industrial strategy, a 10-year plan to back our strengths and unlock potential. The government has committed to increasing investment in creative industries to £31 billion by 2035.
Sam Russell.
Before, Mr Speaker.
Secretary of State.
With permission, Mr Speaker, I will answer questions 4 and 6 together. The 2023 Legacy Act was rejected by all the major Northern Ireland political parties, as well as by our domestic courts, victims and survivors, and by many veterans who saw it as an affront to the rule of law that they sought to protect. The government took a significant step in fulfilling our commitment to repeal and replace the Act by introducing the Troubles Bill, which received its second reading yesterday.
Rushworth.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm proud to represent a community with a lot of veterans, many of whom served in Northern Ireland. Can the Secretary of State tell me who is he engaging with to make sure that the protections for our veterans in the Legacy Act are as strong and effective as possible?
Well, we have those protections have been drawn up following extensive consultation with veterans' organisations, and I gave the House a commitment yesterday evening that I will continue to talk to veterans, to the Royal British Legion and to the Veterans Commissions and others to make sure we get these right.
Sir Hall.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My constituents Colin and Wendy Parry, whose 12-year-old son Tim, along with 3-year-old Jonathan Ball, were murdered in the 1993 Warrington bombing, and they've waited over 30 years for justice. Will the Secretary of State ensure that the government acts on the extracts of the Shawcross report and the 2018 Northern Ireland APPG recommendations and work across government to deliver justice for Libyan-sponsored IRA terrorism? And will he meet with me to discuss these matters?
Secretary of State.
Well, the whole House would once again want to express its sympathy to all the families affected by that terrible bombing. The government and predecessor governments have raised this issue with the Libyan authorities. It is a difficult process engaging with them. There are complications to do with the way in which their assets are held. This is a lead for the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office, and I will make sure that the appropriate minister hears the request that my honourable friend has made.
Alex Easton.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Secretary of State, isn't it the reality that this legislation has failed to win the confidence of many who served? And that's what is now needed, are clear, robust protections against repeated investigations so that we honour our veterans in practice and not just in rhetoric.
Well, I say to the honourable gentleman, those protections, including against repeated investigations, are clearly set out in the bill that the House gave a second reading to yesterday, and I hope that as people come to understand that they're there and how they work, they will offer the reassurance that he is looking for.
Jim Allister.
Yesterday in the second reading, the Secretary of State gave an undertaking that he would not appoint any paramilitaries to the Victims and Survivors group. In light of that undertaking, will he now underwrite it by indicating that he will accept an amendment to put into statutory form that there cannot be any paramilitary serving on the Victims and Survivors group? If his undertaking is good, then let's make it even better by putting in statute.
Well, I think from memory, Mr. Speaker, I gave that undertaking 3 times at the dispatch box yesterday, and I hope that it would provide the honourable member with the assurance that he is looking for, because I'm quite clear no one with that record is going to be appointed to the Victims and Survivors panel.
Parin Moon.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, along with the Veterans Minister, I met with a group of Special Forces veterans based in Cornwall. The Legacy Act's immunity scheme, which would have enabled immunity for terrorists and other key provisions, were ruled against by our domestic courts. Isn't it the case that any new government would have had to have dealt with this?
Well, that is indeed the case. My honourable friend is absolutely right. It was quite wrong to have brought forward legislation to seek to give immunity to terrorists, which is what the last government's Legacy Act did, and that is probably the principal reason why it had no support in Northern Ireland, including from victims and survivors, because there is a fundamental principle. We believe in the rule of law, and it should apply to everyone, and that is why the government is acting in the legislation to finally, and the remedial order, to finally lay that failed attempt at immunity to rest.
Gregory Stafford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I ask the Secretary of State was the Irish Deputy Prime Minister, Simon Harris, wrong when he said that there were no new protections for veterans in the Troubles Bill?
Well, there clearly are new protections. There clearly are new protections for veterans in the Troubles Bill set out throughout the legislation that were never in the previous legislation that the last government passed, and we've laid them out to the House, and the veterans community and others can see clearly what they are.
Alex Burkhart, Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On the 15th of August 1998, in Omagh, the real IRA murdered 29 people, including a woman who was pregnant with twins. It was the deadliest attack of the Troubles and the most wicked. Following the 2021 recommendation of Mr. Justice Horner, the last Conservative government launched the Omagh inquiry into whether there was anything that UK state authorities could have done to prevent the bombing. But the bombers planned and launched their attack from the Republic of Ireland. And this was why Mr. Justice Horner also said there needed to be an independent inquiry in the Republic to ask whether Irish state authorities themselves could have done anything. Given that the UK's inquiry was announced 3 years ago, has the Secretary of State raised the question of an inquiry in the South with his counterparts on his recent trip to Dublin?
Well, I have in my conversations with the Irish government raised that question. It is, of course, for the Irish government to decide whether they wish to hold a public inquiry, but as the honourable gentleman will be well aware, the Irish government has committed to cooperate fully with the inquiry the last government established, both through the Memorandum of Understanding on the provision of information and the commitment they have made to legislate to allow witnesses to give evidence to it.
Now, look, I thank the Secretary of State for his answer, and I am aware that the Republic is sharing information with our inquiry. But the Secretary of State will be aware that the Omagh inquiry is only capable of answering questions about what UK state authorities did and did not do. But 4 years ago, Mr. Justice Horner said that there needed to be a parallel inquiry in the South. The victims and families recognise it. Does the Secretary of State recognise it?
Well, I recognise both what the judge said in his judgment 4 years ago, and And I strongly support what the last government did to establish a public inquiry. But it is a matter for the Irish government to make that decision. But I hope that with the cooperation, unprecedented cooperation, that the Irish government has undertaken to give to the inquiry, it will provide absolutely vital information for the inquiry to get to the bottom of what happened.
Paul Kelner, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I hope the Secretary of State knows, my party and I are hugely supportive of his efforts to move beyond the Tories' failed Legacy Act, provided the legitimate concerns of our veterans are fully met. Can the Secretary of State detail specifically, either now or in writing later, with which veteran groups he has consulted on the wording of the bill and which ones have currently expressed acceptance of the bill as currently drafted?
Well, I will very gladly, if I may, write to the honourable gentleman to set out the veterans' organisations that the government, myself, the Defence Secretary and the Armed Forces Minister have engaged in drawing up those protections, and I've already indicated to the House the groups we will continue to talk to as we take that work forward.
Matt Tobin.
Question number 5, please, Mr. Speaker.
The government's new partnership with the EU aims to deliver a broad range of economic benefits for Northern Ireland, including smoothing flows of trade, protecting the UK's internal market, reducing costs for businesses and benefiting firms who move agri-food and plants from Great Britain to Northern Ireland.
Matt Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Secretary of State for his answer. Does he agree with me that aligning safety standards and cutting red tape for checks and paperwork is precisely the kind of support for growth and trade that this government promised to deliver for business when it was elected last year?
Well, I do agree with my honourable friend on that, and that is why the partnership agreement reached with the EU back in May was so widely welcomed in Northern Ireland, particularly by those in the agri-food sector, because as we take that forward and turn it into a full SPS agreement, it will bring enormous benefits to firms that are moving those products across the Irish Sea from Great Britain to Northern Ireland.
Robin Swan.
Which, Mr. Speaker, come the 1st of January, veterinary medicines in Northern Ireland will be reduced by 40% according to the current suppliers over there. What steps is the government taking to ensure the supply of veterinary medicines into Northern Ireland, which ensure animal health, but also have a link into human health as well?
Well, as the honourable gentleman will be aware, we've had the Veterinary Medicines Working Group. We've been working very closely with the industry. We have set out 2 schemes, the Veterinary Medicines Health Situation Scheme and the Veterinary Medicines Internal Market Scheme, drawing on the cascade, and we are confident that that will ensure the continued supply of veterinary medicines from the 1st of January to vets and farmers and others who need them.
Joe White.
Question number 7, Mr. Speaker.
Seriously.
The Northern Ireland Troubles Bill will retain Part 4 of the 2023 Legacy Act, which includes provisions for memorialisation. I would welcome views and suggestions on how to take this forward, including on whether any new memorials should be established.
Joe White.
On the 5th of April 1979, an IRA sniper fired at an armoured vehicle as it entered Anderstown RUC station, killing Blues Royal Serviceman Anthony Dykes. My constituent, whose mother, Kathleen, now aged 94, has never let his memory go. She told me her son is a forgotten soldier. There are monuments for soldiers killed in Afghanistan and Iraq, but nothing for those who served in Northern Ireland. Kathleen is now very frail. I am her voice today, asking government to commit to a national memorial.
Well, first of all, could I express on behalf of the whole House our condolences to her on the loss of her son all those years ago. I would say that the names of those service personnel who died on deployment to Operation Banner are rightly listed on the Armed Forces Memorial at the National Memorial Arboretum as a lasting record of their sacrifice. And I don't know whether my honourable friend's constituent has had a chance to visit there. Perhaps it's something she might like to facilitate.
Father of the House, Sir Edmund Lee.
Many thousands of our brave troops served in Northern Ireland, and many gave their lives for peace and for our country. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that they deserve a permanent memorial, not some of them to be prosecuted?
Yeah. Well, as I indicated in answer to the earlier question, there is that memorial already at the National Memorial Arboretum. There are other places in which the service and sacrifice of those who served the state is recorded, including the RUC Memorial Garden that I've had the opportunity to visit, and it was an extremely moving occasion as one looks at all of the names and remembers the huge sacrifice that all of those people made in defence of freedom in Northern Ireland.
Before I come to Prime Minister's questions, may I extend a warm welcome to the President of the National Council of Slovak Republic and his delegation, who are with us in the gallery today. And may I also welcome the new Chief Minister of St Helena. We now come to questions to Prime Minister Kate Malthouse.
Number one.
Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, let me start by congratulating Scotland on their magnificent victory last night, qualifying for the World Cup for the first time since 1998.
I didn't realise you were all Scottish MPs, Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, they qualified with fantastic goals, including a cracker from former Arsenal player Kieran Tierney, who was always a great favourite with the fans. Mr Speaker, my thoughts are with the communities across the country affected by severe flooding, particularly in Monmouthshire. I've been liaising with the First Minister of Wales and want to thank all our emergency services for their response. Mr Speaker, my thoughts are also with the family and loved one of Royal Fleet Auxiliary member James Elliott, who has sadly been lost. I know the contribution that personnel of the Royal Fleet Auxiliary make and the risks that they take in the line of duty. My thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House, are with those who knew him at this tragic and difficult time for them. Mr Speaker, last Thursday I visited Anglesey to announce the construction of the country's first small modular reactor. That's the biggest investment in North Wales in a generation, creating more than 6,000 jobs. On Monday, we introduced the largest overhaul of the asylum policy in modern times, restoring control, fairness and creating safe and legal routes. And today I'm pleased to announce that inflation is coming down. There's more to do, but it's an important step. Mr Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Mr Speaker, many of us are becoming concerned that technical or procedural manoeuvres outside of this House may be used to prevent Parliament reaching a decision on the terminally ill adults bill. Now, the government is neutral on the bill itself, but I presume it's not neutral on the issue of democracy or the primacy of this chamber. So could the Prime Minister please reassure the House that the decision of elected members, and indeed the wishes and hopes of the vast majority of the people we serve, will not be frustrated in this way?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for his question? I know he feels strongly about this issue. As he says, the government is neutral on the passage of the bill. It is a matter of conscience, so there are different and respected views across Parliament. And it is for Parliament to decide in the end on any changes in this chamber. Scrutiny of the bill in the Lords is a matter for the Lords, but the government does have a responsibility to make sure that any legislation which passes through Parliament is workable, is effective and of course enforceable.
John Trickett.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Speaker. And the party opposite in government said that they would level up the country, but in fact they left the country divided. Half austerity, in deindustrialisation, stagnant wages, all took the heart, ripped the heart out of mining communities like the ones I represent. Everywhere you can see the legacy which the party opposite left. And how can it be right that the hard-working, loyal people in my constituency earn £400 a week or £20,000 a year less than people who live in Kensington? So will the Prime Minister now declare that it is the government's moral purpose to eliminate economic injustice, starting with the budget next week, announcing massive investment in the north and wherever else poverty and low pay raising its head?
Well, can I thank you for raising this important issue, because they laugh, but working people paid a very heavy price for 14 years of economic failure. Austerity damaged the economy and decimated public services. A botched Brexit deal stifled growth, and the reckless borrowing on the mini-budget saw mortgages and the cost of living soar. He's right to raise this issue. We're determined to tackle inequality. He'll be pleased to know that under this government wages are up, but we need to do more. We've had a pay increase for the 3.5 million lowest paid, and the Chancellor will deliver a budget based on Labour values.
Kemi Badenoch, Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate our side of the House with the remarks the Prime Minister made about James Elliott? Can the Prime Minister tell us why his government is the first government in history to float increasing income tax rates only to then U-turn on it all after the actual budget?
Prime Minister.
I'll inform you the budget's actually next week rather than after the budget. It's only got 1 week to go. But I can tell her it'll be a Labour budget, Mr. Speaker, with Labour values. That means we will concentrate on cutting NHS waiting lists, cutting debt and cutting the cost of living. And because of the decisions we've already made, inflation is down this morning. The Bank of England have upgraded growth. We've got a record £230 billion of investment into this country under this government.
Mr. Speaker, he says the budget is next week, but we read all about it in the papers. This is the first budget to unravel before it's even been delivered. The Chancellor's cluelessness, I'm afraid, is damaging the economy now. The Prime Minister needs to end this shambles. So can he confirm today that he won't break another promise by freezing income tax thresholds?
Mr. Speaker, the budget is 1 week today and we will lay out our plans. But what we won't do, Mr. Speaker, I've said what we will do in terms of protecting the NHS and public services. What we won't do is inflict austerity on the country as they did. It's caused huge damage. What we won't do is inflict a borrowing spree like Liz Truss did, also inflicted and did huge damage. Mr. Speaker, have they learnt anything? She's apparently got a golden economic rule, I think. So it's a very important rule, this golden rule. That there's this £47 billion of cuts with no detail. No wonder the Institute of Government says they're on very shaky foundations. They haven't listened and they haven't learned.
Mr. Speaker, it is quite clear that they are going to freeze thresholds. We didn't get a clear answer from them, but this is really important. Because in her budget speech last year, the Chancellor said, and I quote, "I am keeping every single promise on tax that I made in our manifesto. So there will be no extension of the freeze in income tax and national insurance thresholds." Why was freezing thresholds a breach of the manifesto last year, but it isn't this year?
Mr. Speaker, every week she comes along and speculates and distorts. Last year, Mr. Speaker, last year they predicted recession. And what did we get? The fastest growing economy in the G7 in the first half of the year. They opposed NHS investment, and what do we get? 5 million extra appointments in the first year of a Labour government. They tried growing the economy with millions on NHS waiting lists, with our schools crumbling and holes in our road. It didn't work. What do they want to do now? Go back to the same failed experiment.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about speculation. The only people who've been speculating are his government every single day for the last 3 months. And he mentioned inflation in his last answer. Inflation has nearly doubled since they came into office. He wants a round of applause because it's come down a little bit. I will remind him that food inflation is up 4.9%. That is making life miserable for all of those people out there. But let's go back to thresholds because this is important. When the Chancellor made that promise to unfreeze the thresholds, it wasn't an off-the-cuff comment. She said it on the floor of this House in her budget speech. That was a deliberate statement of government policy. So if she breaks such a clear promise, how can the public trust a word that she says next week?
Mr. Speaker, she talks about inflation. It went to 11% on that. 11%, and the country is still paying the price. Inflation is down this morning, wages are up, and we've had 5 interest rate cuts, and that's because our fiscal rules are ironclad. And the Leader of the Opposition and the party opposite have no credibility on the economy. She was Treasury Minister during the worst decline in living standards on record. And she said that Liz Truss got the mini-budget 100% right. Not much room for flexibility there. 100%, that's pretty full marks, Mr. Speaker. She might want to tell us if that's still her position, 100% right for Liz Truss.
Mr. Speaker, I was Treasury Minister at the height of the pandemic. We cleaned up that mess. Maybe he could clean up some of his own mess. And I'm going to repeat what the Chancellor said, because it's quite clear that the whole front bench has forgotten. She said, "I have come to the conclusion that extending the threshold freeze would hurt working people. It would take more money out of their pay slips, and yet that's what they're planning to do next week." And all of this speculation is having real-world consequences. Just this morning, the UK chair of ExxonMobil said, and I quote, "The government needs to understand that the whole industrial base of the UK is at risk unless they wake up and realise the damage their economic policies are doing." Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us, is the loss of UK industry the price the country has to pay for having a clueless Chancellor?
Mr. Speaker, let me just say about ExxonMobil, it is a difficult time for the workforce there, and we must focus on supporting them. We've been meeting the company for over 6 months and explored every possible reasonable avenue. They've been facing losses for the last 5 years. It's best to do the detail before you chunter. And they're currently losing £1 million a week. But she talks about policy and approach. On energy policy, she follows reform. On the European Convention, she follows the man who wants her job. And when her shadow minister said we should deport people lawfully here to achieve cultural coherence, she pretended that it didn't happen. I could go on. She was the Trade Secretary that didn't sign any trade deals. Cheerleader for the mini-budget, cheerleader for open borders, and when they were crashing the economy, botching Brexit and running down the NHS, she was right at the centre. She hasn't got an ounce of credibility.
Mr. Speaker, on energy policy, what we are doing is listening to industry. What happened, I had a round table.
Ms. Slinger, please. We don't want to have to sling you out.
Mr. Speaker, just this morning, we heard from the chair of one of our largest energy companies. Last week, I had a round table with energy companies, and what they had to say about this Prime Minister and his energy secretary is unprintable. They are absolutely furious. Our oil and gas industry is dying, and he's standing there saying he had meetings. People out there are struggling, Mr. Speaker. The budget chaos is causing real anxiety. People aren't buying houses, businesses aren't hiring, and they are cancelling investment decisions. 2 weeks ago, the Chancellor called a ridiculous press conference to blame everyone else for her having to raise income tax. Then last week, she U-turned on her own U-turn. Instead, we can see they're planning to freeze income tax thresholds, something she said last year would be a breach of their manifesto. They are making it up as they go along. Doesn't the country deserve better than government by guesswork?
Mr. Speaker, either we renew our country with Labour or we go back to austerity 2.0 with reform of the Tories. They left waiting lists at record highs. almost 1 million more children in poverty, and they wrecked our public services. She comes here to talk down the country. We're turning the page. More NHS appointments, free breakfast clubs, free childcare, more homes and better public services. That's what we're fighting for, a Britain built for all.
Lord Hatton.
Mr Speaker, standing in the heart of Weymouth, the Rectory is an iconic building. Formerly a theatre, once a bustling cinema and then a popular pub as well. And yet for more than a decade this building has stood empty. We want to turn this building into a thriving centre for arts and culture, hosting exhibitions and celebrating everything that makes Weymouth unique. So will the Prime Minister work with me and all the key players on the ground to revitalise the Rectory and reopen this fantastic building for our town?
Prime Minister.
Well, my honourable friend is a brilliant champion for South Dorset, and he's right to champion revitalising our high streets. The Minister for Heritage would be delighted to discuss how we can get this iconic building reopened as he wants. I'm pleased that Weymouth secured £20 million in Pride in Place funding, giving his community the power and resources to make a real difference to people's lives.
Sir David, Leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I associate myself with the Prime Minister's opening remarks? And can I also join with him in congratulating Scotland on their amazing win against Denmark and wish them well in the World Cup? And can I also say I hope Wales soon qualifies to join England and Scotland? But Mr Speaker, every year there are more than 300 suicides related to problem gambling. It affects hundreds of thousands of families, tearing them apart. Meanwhile, online gambling firms are taking in record revenues of over £7 billion a year. Now, ITV News are reporting that one of them, Sky Bet, is moving its headquarters to Malta so it can save tens of millions of pounds in corporation tax. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that it's time that we tax them on their UK profits so these online gambling firms don't escape wherever they are registered for tax?
Prime Minister.
But can I join him on wishing Wales well and Northern Ireland? I'd like to see all four nations in the finals. But look, he raises the really important issue of suicide, and it's Men's Health Day, and it is really important. And I think the whole House would want to work together on anything that can prevent suicide. I think if all of us think about individuals we may know who lost their lives through suicide, it's something that touches almost every one of us and all of our families as well. We will, of course, look at the link between suicide and gambling and take whatever measures we can to reduce suicide. It's a very important issue.
Sir David.
For his reply, we look forward to the government coming forward with action on that. On another domestic matter, Mr Speaker, next to the River Cherwell in Oxfordshire, a field is now covered in an enormous mound of rubbish, 150 metres long and up to 12 metres high. The water is now lapping against the waste and carrying it into the river. It's just one of many sites, Mr Speaker, where organised criminal gangs are illegally dumping their waste onto our countryside and getting away with it. This is a shocking environmental emergency. So will he instruct the Environment Agency to clean it up now?
Firstly, these are utterly appalling scenes. Utterly appalling. A criminal investigation, as he knows, is underway, and specialist officers are tracking down those responsible. The Environmental Agency, in answer to his question, will use all available powers to make sure that the perpetrators cover the cost of the clean-up, which must now follow. We have boosted the Environment Agency's budget for tackling waste crime by 50%, given councils new powers to seize and crush fly tippers' vehicles, and lawbreakers can now face up to 5 years in jail.
Dominic.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Immigration is the #1 issue on doorsteps of Bristol North East. Most people will ask me about it. They want a firm, but also a fair approach, but have been let down over many years. Controlling our borders and knowing who comes is essential, not least to integration. Mr Speaker, what can the Prime Minister say to my constituents in Bristol North East that will give them assurance that the reforms that the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary are proposing, which I support, will be firm, but will also be fair.
Prime Minister.
I'm proud, Mr Speaker, to lead an open, tolerant, generous country. To maintain that principle, we must restore order and control, fix the utterly broken system left by the party opposite, and end the division that others seek to exploit. That does include creating safe and legal routes, recognising those who contribute, integrate and strengthen our society, while at the same time reducing illegal arrivals and removing those with no right to be here. That is a fair, progressive system that meets modern challenges.
Jim Allister.
Mr Speaker, the governments of France, Germany and the United States have all extracted from Libya compensation for their citizens who were affected by Gaddafi-led terrorism across the world. Why, Prime Minister, is the British government continuing to fail United Kingdom citizens who suffered to a huge extent through the importation of arms and, in particular, the tons of Semtex that Gaddafi supplied to the IRA, giving rise to Enniskillen, to Warrington, to the Baltic Exchange and multiple others? Why is no compensation being extracted from Libya for our citizens when it can be done for others? And will the Prime Minister at least meet representatives of the almost forgotten but still campaigning families for those affected by Gaddafi's terrorism?
Well,
Prime Minister.
So many suffer from Gaddafi, and he's absolutely right to raise this really serious issue, and we're working hard on it. I'll absolutely make sure that the meeting he asks for is set up with the relevant minister so that we can give the full position and take on board what they have to say.
Luke Charters.
On International Men's Day and in the spirit of Movember, I want to be open about my own past mental health challenges in the hope that it might encourage other men to do the same. And during the traumatic birth of my first son, I nearly lost my wife, and a dark cloud settled over me. A cloud lifted through conversation and support, and through the safe arrival of my second son, and bright days lie ahead. I'm joined in the gallery today by Mike from York Menfulness, a fantastic charity giving men a place to talk. So will the Prime Minister, as a dad himself, agree with me that strength as a man means being open about our emotions and that we should never face into challenges on our own?
Can I thank him for his honesty? It's never easy to stand up and say what he's just said. And I hope he understands just how important that is for others who will be suffering, who will be inspired to be able to talk openly about their experiences and, importantly, get the help that they need. I'm really proud to publish the first ever men's health strategy today to tackle challenges that disproportionately affect men, including certain cancers and suicide, which is tragically the biggest killer of those men under 50. So we will invest millions in helping more men access mental health support, better care for former minors, and rolling out at-home blood tests to tackle prostate cancer. But I do thank him for speaking out. I think it's so important, it's so brave. It's been done across the House. This isn't a party political issue, but it's always very powerful when it's done, and it's a model for all of us.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Given the Government's desire to improve educational outcomes and the well-being of our children, it is ignoring the elephant in the room. This morning I hosted a really powerful roundtable with 3 secondary head teachers who spoke about the transformational effect that a complete ban on smartphones in their schools had had. Improved behaviour, increased focus, far fewer safeguarding issues, and most importantly, happier children. But for them it has been really hard won, and it's sunk a huge amount of time. So will the Prime Minister tell me and the thousands of head teachers out there who are crying out for this change why his government won't back them with a ban on smartphones in schools?
Prime Minister.
I thank her for a question. It's a really important question. I've got teenage children in secondary school, and I know it's an issue of concern to parents and teachers. The reality of the statistics are that The vast majority of schools already ban smartphones at school. They allow children to bring their phones to schools, but they ban them in school time in lessons. Of course, we will always keep this under review. We've got to take steps that will be effective. I agree with the sentiment of what she's putting to me. We need to deal with it effectively.
Andrew Peggs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the worst legacies of the last Conservative government was the collapse in apprenticeships for young people in places such as Peterborough, shutting a generation out of opportunity. Mr. Speaker, my city is determined to turn that around, with places like Peterborough College, like many of our colleges, leading the charge. Whilst I welcome the government's reform, I still speak to too many young people who can't access the training they need to rebuild Britain. Will the Prime Minister set out what more we can do together to ensure Peterborough's young people get the good jobs and apprenticeships they deserve?
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him. His dedicated campaign means Peterborough has one of the first youth guarantee pilots in the country. Mr. Speaker, we inherited an awful situation where almost 1 million young people were not earning or learning. We refuse to accept that. That's why we're delivering the new youth guarantee, investing a record £3 billion into apprenticeships and increasing the national minimum wage for 16 to 20-year-olds. Reform and the Tories say the minimum wage is too high. They're totally wrong. We're going to focus on every young person to give them the chance to succeed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst the Labour front bench continue to peddle their own form of dog whistle politics, Reform UK... Reform UK are cracking on with the day job. Our reform-led councils are reform...
Can I just say, you might say it's the way he tells them, but it might be worse. It's the way I tell them. Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our reform-led councils have already identified savings of over £330 million in the first 6 months. And the Prime Minister may shake his head propped up by these gullible backbenchers, but here's the challenge. Will he ensure that all the cancelled elections from this year and the proposed local elections for next year will go ahead in May 2026? Go on, be a man.
I didn't realise this was quite so good at stand-up comedy. Mr. Speaker, he talks about dog whistle. Last week, his leader said he didn't have time to condemn the racist comments of his fellow MP for Runcorn. He also said he didn't have time to condemn his party calling children in care evil. He didn't have time. I wonder if you can ask his leader next door to him whether he's got time for his explanation for the stories in today's papers.
Mr. Speaker, over the summer, large quantities of illegal cigarettes were seized in shops in my Carlisle constituency. However, many of those shops will reopen the very next day. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that we have to make it easier for these shops to be closed down permanently so we put out of business forever these criminal networks?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank her for raising this? Because there's been a surge in response to illegal shops selling products they shouldn't be selling and not paying their taxes. It's very important. Raids in October, Mr. Speaker, saw over 900 arrests, almost £11 million of criminal profits were seized, and almost £3 million of illegal gear was destroyed. We need to go further to protect our high streets. That's why we're giving councils powers to prevent certain shops from even opening, supporting them to deal with unwanted shops, and through the tobacco and vapes bill, cracking down on rogue retailers who break the law.
Josh Bumberley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Eastbourne resident Pam was given a cheque for £125,000 by her terminally ill partner, which she went on to cash in. But an error by the bank, Barclays, meant that only £125 was deposited. Barclays admitted the error and then said that they will compensate her for £250 for the inconvenience caused.
What?
Will the Prime Minister work with me to ensure that Barclays Bank pays Pam the compensation that she needs and deserves? And while we're here, will he commit to imposing a windfall tax on the banks like Barclays on their excess profits to bring bills down for residents struggling?
Prime Minister.
The case of his constituent Pam is staggeringly bad, absolutely terrible. If he could provide me with the full details of it, I will make sure that the government joins him in doing whatever we can in relation to his constituent. And before I sit down, may I take a moment to send my warmest congratulations to the honourable member on getting engaged, I think, on Thursday. The proposal, I think, was right here in Parliament. You never know what you might find in this dispatch box. But on behalf of my party, and actually I'm sure the whole House, can I wish him and Connor a lifetime of happiness.
Connor Naismith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Crewe Railway Station is the gateway to the north and indeed the shop window for my constituency, with an average annual footfall of 4.5 million people. I am working with Cheshire East Council on ambitious plans for Crewe 360 to deliver much needed investment into the station and into the land around the station, and we want to adopt the Railway Industry Association's Station Investment Zone proposals, which could deliver much needed improvements in transport, housing, regeneration and economic growth. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that Crewe would make a perfect pilot for these proposals? And will he agree to work with me to bring government departments around the table so that we can make these plans a reality?
Minister.
Well, I thank him for his question. Because of our actions, Mr Speaker, house building near stations like Crewe will now be a default yes. That means tens of thousands of homes delivered far sooner for families with great transport links as standard. I'll make sure that he meets the relevant ministers to drive forward growth. Every step we've taken to deliver more homes has been opposed by the parties opposite. They're the blockers, Labour are the builders.
James McMurdoch.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, it is an open secret that the gig economy is a magnet for organised crime and illegal workers. As Christmas approaches and demand increases, so do the associated risks. Will the Prime Minister please explain why enforcement in this area is so low and what he will do to restore order?
Well, we're delivering a record crackdown on illegal working in the gig economy, expanding the right to work and facial recognition checks, which are really important. We're also introducing a new criminal offence of trespassing with intent to commit a crime through the Place and Criming Bill.
Mr Coteau.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Based on their reactions care or remember, but every day I see the cost to my constituents in Bournemouth West of years of cuts to public services. Youth services gone, neighbourhood policing decimated, no NHS dentist appointments. So can the Prime Minister confirm there will be no return to austerity under this Labour government?
I certainly can. But the austerity that they imposed on the country destroyed our public services, and we're still paying the price. We'll be cutting waiting lists, cutting the debt and cutting the cost of living. Fair choices to secure Britain's future, not a return to the failure of the party opposite.
Jack Rankin.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister has expressed sincere regret for appointing David Cogan to the Independent Football Regulator. Will he now put on record the full amount Mr Cogan has donated to his leadership campaign and his party, any hospitality he's received, and whether he declared these interests before appointing him?
Prime Minister.
They were all declared properly.
Not the amount.
Mr Speaker, this Friday we commemorate the 51st anniversary of the Birmingham pub bombings, in which 21 people lost their lives in what is still the largest unsolved murder in our history. The families do not believe that the approach set out by the government will discover the truth and that only a public inquiry will do. Can we now have the meetings in order to hear the families' concerns direct and agree an approach that will command not just confidence but will find the truth of who bombed Birmingham?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I extend my deepest sympathies that remain with the bereaved and survivors of the horrific pub bombing in Birmingham in 1974. We do believe the most appropriate route is through the Independent Commission for Reconciliation and Information Recovery, but Honourable Friend has raised this issue directly with me, and of course I'll make sure that the relevant meeting is set up so that he and the families can put their point of view for us to consider.
Mr.
Mr Speaker,
You in the Chamber will be well aware that I represent the biggest and most remote constituency in the UK. And I'm bound to say, Mr. Speaker, that in it, bank branches are becoming rarer than sightings of the Loch Ness Monster. We have no banks at all in the huge county of Sutherland. Now, we have legislation that provides for access to cash, but what we don't have is legislation that provides for face-to-face banking services. So I'd be deeply grateful if the Prime Minister would ask the Treasury to meet with me to discuss how we might update the Financial Services and Markets Act to include some form of access to cash provision that would preserve face-to-face banking for my constituents and other remote areas.
Mr. Speaker, I know how important face-to-face banking is to local communities. As he knows, we're rolling out banking hubs. Decisions over location are taken independently, but they should be rolled out wherever there is a need for one. And of course, there's more to come. I will, in answer to his question, make sure that he gets the meeting that he requests so that we can have a look at the proposal.
Abdul Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the Prime Minister is aware, November marks Islamophobia Awareness Month. This Labour government has shown a steadfast commitment to supporting Muslim communities, particularly through consulting on the definition of Islamophobia. Given anti-Muslim hate is at record levels in the UK, can the Prime Minister outline the steps this government will take to tackle a rising level of racism, xenophobia against the Muslims in Britain?
Minister.
Can I thank him for raising this important issue? He's always been a strong champion on this. Anti-Muslim hatred is abhorrent, Mr. Speaker, and has no place in our society. And the increase in incidents must be addressed. It's why we're increasing funding to protect mosques and Muslim faith schools across the country. It's why we've announced a new fund to monitor anti-Muslim hatred and support victims. And we continue to work on the definition of anti-Muslim hatred.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Everyone who cares about media independence and freedom will be relieved that Redbird have recognised that they cannot run the Telegraph. But there are serious concerns that they will burden the paper with unsustainable debt if the title is sold for less than £500 million. So will the Prime Minister step in to prevent this from happening and enable a sale at a lower price if necessary, without this toxic debt burden?
Prime Minister.
Well, he raises a serious issue. I'm not quite sure what he's asking the government to do. To step in and nationalise it, I don't think would be the right
thing.
Whereas, Mr. Speaker, on the 5th of March at the Dispatch box, the Prime Minister said these words: "We do recognise Cornish national minority status, not just the proud language, the history and the culture of Cornwall, but its bright future. Since then, I've repeatedly asked ministers for Cornwall's unique place on this island to be recognised through devolution. When the devolution bill comes back to the House next week, will the Prime Minister help me explicitly enshrine Cornish devolution and Cornish national minority status in that bill?"
Prime Minister.
Can I thank him for his question? Of course, he has raised this issue with me on a number of occasions already. He's a great champion for Cornwall. We will ensure that Cornwall's national minority status is safeguarded in any future devolution arrangements. We have provided £500,000 to support distinctive Cornish culture, including the Cornish language.
So, David.
The Prime Minister knows that last week 9 four-star generals made plain that yesterday's Northern Ireland bill is doing harm to the British Army already. Most acute damage is being felt by the Special Air Service. It's already affecting their recruitment, their retention, their morale and their operational effectiveness. As a result, lawyers acting for the SAS Regimental Association have sent a letter before action to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. I know of no precedent for this in the entire history of the British Army, and it's because it's so important. It reflects how important it is. So can I make a plea to the Prime Minister? Will he involve himself personally to make sure that 60, 70, 80-year-old soldiers who have carried out actions which most of us would view as heroic are not persecuted in the coming years? Because now it's a matter not of national security, but of national honour.
Can I thank him for his question and reassure him on the protections that he seeks for veterans, because it is a very important issue and he's continually and rightly raised it. There will be protection from repeat investigations, so the Commission doesn't go over old ground without compelling reasons. There will be protection from cold calling and protection in old age, so that elderly veterans are respected. And those who do contribute to the legacy process will have a right to anonymity, a right to stay at home to give evidence remotely, and a right to be heard through the Commission. That is the work that we're doing, and I'm happy to discuss it further with him.
To end on the subject, no doubt we can expect is Scotland's victory total correct.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When the Prime Minister next meets with the President of the United States, can he ask him if he knows any reasonably priced hotels near the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, where the World Cup final is to be held? And as we are about to provide the biggest boost to whisky exports since our trade deal was signed, can he ask the Chancellor to gently consider excise duties next week, so we Scots can continue celebrating at reasonable prices?
Prime Minister. I thank him for his question. On the question of whisky, it is important that we do everything we can to support whisky. I'm really pleased with the progress we're making with the United States and, of course, with India as well under the trade deal. I'll continue to discuss what more we can do with him.
That completes Prime Minister's questions. Right, we now come to the urgent question. Mrs Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To ask the Secretary of State for Wales if she will make a statement on the aftermath of the recent severe flooding impacting Monmouthshire and what support will be made available for those affected.
Sorry, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My first thoughts are, and those of the Secretary of State, are with all of those people, those businesses affected by the flooding over the weekend. The impact in Monmouthshire has been devastating for local residents and traders, and I know that honourable members across the House will be thinking of them as they recover from this dreadful storm. I'm here because the Secretary of State is in Monmouthshire to thank first responders, to meet the community and thank them for their efforts. She's there with the local member for Monmouthshire, who I know has been supporting her community since the flooding, right across the weekend. I also want to pay tribute to the emergency responders, local residents who've rallied together, and also to thank the Mayor of Monmouth, Jackie Atkin, who's raised a substantial sum of money for the community. As the House will be aware, flooding is a devolved matter. However, the Prime Minister spoke to the First Minister over the weekend and offered the UK Government support with the Welsh Government's response. I know that my ministerial colleague, who's here with me today, has also been in touch with the Deputy First Minister. The Environment Agency has offered support locally, including any mutual aid that may be requested by Natural Resources Wales, who operates in the area. And we know as we see these events increasing, that it demonstrates why our climate response on flooding is so important. Today, the Flood Mobile was sponsored by Flood Re is in Monmouth. There is a mobile demonstration unit which showcases dozens of property flood resilience measures and techniques which can help keep homes and other buildings safer during a flood. that's reaching out to the community. And I would also bring honourable members' attention to what we're doing to support people to access insurance through our partnership with Floodry, a joint initiative between the government, the insurance industry, that ensures households at the highest risk of flooding can access affordable insurance. In the financial year 24-25 alone, Floodry provided cover for over 345,000 household policies. Whilst government officials have met with Monmouthshire Council over the weekend to discuss emergency funding, the Deputy First Minister was also there over the weekend to meet first responders and the community. And opportunities are being made available through Emergency Financial Assistance Scheme. The Welsh Government has been working very closely with the Council and all the emergency services and has been ensuring that they have committed over £370 million to reduce risks to communities right across Wales. But I know the Welsh Government is working, doing everything they can at this very difficult time for the community and for businesses in Monmouthshire.
Secretary statement.
Mr Speaker, this weekend, tragic and heart-wrenching floods affected families and their loved ones, meaning evacuation from their properties in Monmouth after the River Monnow burst its banks. This, in turn, blighting businesses with devastating consequences. This horrific experience also hit hard nearby areas, including Abergavenny and Thrift Village. Now, there are desperate families and business owners across Monmouthshire who've lost their homes, their livelihoods. They've literally lost everything, with Christmas looming, a key time also for hospitality. I'd like to also thank the emergency services, all volunteers, many local councillors and the MS Peter Fox. They've done fantastic work around the clock to assist, safeguard and do what they can to help and support those impacted. It is now instrumental, without any delay, and the necessary vital support reaches every single person who's been affected by these devastating floods, so that their longer term needs are also met. Local people report that they don't have any clarity and answers and insight on what to expect beyond the initial rescue and this community kindness. They've been told discussions are ongoing. The First Minister outlined this week in the Senate some support, and the PM also offered support to Monmouthshire. So can the Minister provide details on what exactly practically this means on the ground in the coming weeks? Can the Minister also outline a time frame for when support will reach the people of Monmouthshire and what precisely it will entail? It's reported some insurance companies won't pay as they only meet storm damage, not flood damage. Locals want urgent resources, not endless form filling to the Senate. They need urgent help now, and for it to be fast-tracked, they say, via the Council. And finally, does the Minister agree with me? Time is of the essence in answering these vital questions to ensure residents' and businesses' anxieties do not worsen.
I thank the member opposite, and absolutely she is right. Time is of the essence, and my heart absolutely goes out to all those impacted by this storm over the weekend. It is a dreadful thing to have to go through or see those hard work that you've put in perhaps all your life, and see the business flooded, your home flooded. I can't imagine the trauma and the difficulty that those people are going through. As I said, the First Minister spoke to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister reached out over the weekend to look at how support can be offered following the flooding. The First Minister has also been very clear in looking at how funding can be provided for those impacted in the least bureaucratic way possible. Look, the nature of that support, we're a few days after that event. The nature of that support will become clear as this clean-up continues, as we see the days go on. We'll be working with emergency services, we'll be working with those impacted. The Welsh Government has emergency financial assistance schemes for just these very scenarios, and they have been kicked in and they are being used. Proposals for support are being prepared. Local government finance officials are there on the ground. The Secretary of State is there on the ground today. We are doing all we can, working hand in hand with the Welsh Government, with the Council, with the mayors, and making sure that those impacted get the support they need as quickly as possible.
Jessica Moore.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My neighbour, the Honourable friend from Monmouthshire, is, as the very diligent representative she is, out as we speak in Abergavenny, and will join the Secretary of State in Monmouth shortly, meeting and listening to those affected by these devastating floods which hit Monmouth, Abergavenny, Skemford and the villages. She's asked me to say a very big heartfelt thank you to the emergency services, all the authorities, all those who've helped, and to thank the incredible community effort and many kindnesses shown over the last few days, including offers of beds, homes, donations and more. Hundreds and hundreds of businesses and homes will be affected, and it will take many months to clear up. I know she's liaising with the Prime Minister, with departments, with the Welsh Government, and it is a devolved issue, and we'll have many asks. But can I ask on her behalf that we continue to offer support in the many ways that will be needed in the period. And I'm also mindful of other areas impacted by flooding, including my own.
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend. She makes an excellent point. The member for Monmouthshire has been so diligent. I was on the phone with her over the weekend. I know that she's been speaking to Welsh Government. I myself was on the phone to the Deputy First Minister over the weekend, and in contact with Natural Resources Wales and local community groups. She has been out there in her wellies helping that clean up, and I know she feels it as deeply as some of those impacted. The support will be there. We will continue to work together. What's important here, despite yes, flooding is devolved, but this matter reaches right across. And wherever we can help, we will. And we are working together to ensure that we, at pace, resolve and help the people that need it.
Amen. David Chadwick, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Mr Speaker, the recent floods in Monmouthshire have been devastating for local communities, and our thoughts are with everyone affected as they try to return to some sense of normality. And I'd also like to pay tribute to the emergency services and everyone who worked so tirelessly to keep residents safe throughout this event. Last year, we saw attempts by multiple fire and rescue authorities in Wales to close small fire stations, which often house the equipment needed to respond to major floods like the ones we've just seen, with two of the proposed closures in my own constituency, in Knighton and Crickhowell. Crickhowell being just a stone's throw away from Monmouthshire, and the services that are based there often go over the border just to help them. Could the Under-Secretary of State clarify what engagements they've had with fire services in Wales on potential closures, and whether she agrees with me that it's vital we keep those small stations open to protect residents in rural Wales from devastating events such as the ones we've just seen?
Minister.
I thank the member for his question. Look, I also want to pay huge tribute to the first responders, to the emergency units, to the fire rescue service, who absolutely did an outstanding job and continue to do that outstanding job over the weekend and now and into the future, but right across Wales. And it is important that we protect those putting themselves in danger and supporting people in need. I'm happy to write to the honourable member about the details of the closures, and I'm happy to get back to him on that.
Nick Smith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Blaenau Gwent and Rumney neighbours, Monmouthshire. Last winter, we experienced coal tip slipping because of heavy rain then. People experiencing flooding deserve all our support. So can the Minister please explain and tell us more about the support available to residents claiming insurance or emergency financial help to help them get through this really difficult time?
Minister.
I thank the member, and he's been a really strong advocate in this area, so I thank him for that. We have pledged £143 million from the UK government for coal tip safety in this Parliament, and I know that this is a big issue that needs to be continually monitored. I know that coal tips were being monitored over the weekend throughout Storm Claudia, and they will continue to be, but this government takes this very seriously and is investing in their safety.
Sir Julian.
Could I appeal to the Minister to help us in one way, because although this is a devolved matter, it is possible in the internet age very easily to make charitable donations. So could she perhaps investigate whether there is a reliable local charity to which people across the country can make donations, and perhaps circulate the details of that after the end of this question?
Minister.
Well, I absolutely thank the honourable member for his suggestion, and I will absolutely take that back, because look, there's been a lot of money raised locally. I mentioned the local mayor, who has raised a significant amount of funds, which is fantastic. But I know that a lot of people will want to help, so I will absolutely take that back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to also pay tribute to all those affected, the emergency responders, and to my honourable friend from Monmouthshire for the tireless effort she's put in since this happened. I'm grateful to the Minister for what she said and what the Prime Minister said earlier about the conversations and constant interaction between ourselves, the UK Government and the Welsh Government and the First Minister. That collaboration between both our governments when there are civil emergencies like this is integral. So will she assure me that those collaboration will continue and that the people of Monmouthshire will have everything they need from us, and we will push the Welsh Government to do everything that they can in order to ensure that those affected get through this crisis?
I thank my honourable friend for raising that important point. And yes, collaboration is key. And in situations like this, where speed is of the essence, it is important that we work together quickly, seamlessly. I know my honourable friend, the Minister for Flood and Water, has been in touch with the Deputy First Minister and also with the member for Monmouthshire, and we will all continue to work together to resolve this, to make sure that those impacted get the support and help as quickly and seamlessly as possible.
Ben Lake.
I also associate myself with the comments and that the Minister for the Wales Office mentioned, and my thoughts are very much with the people of Monmouthshire as they try to get their lives back on track. She mentioned, quite rightly, that these severe weather events are increasing in frequency, and I wonder, further to the very wise words of the Honourable Member for Cardiff West, in addition to the collaboration between the two governments, in light of the increasing frequency of these severe weather events, I wonder whether it's also time for us to consider some sort of central resilience fund to help provide that additional emergency support, which sadly is becoming far too routine.
I thank the honourable member, and he quite rightly points out that important link between climate change and increased flooding, which I mentioned earlier. And it is very important to note that we do need that resilience. We do need to build that into communities, to housing, and I know that there is a fund that exists. We're putting that funding in. This government takes it very, very seriously in terms of investing in that, whether that's new builds, whether that's existing builds, whether that's communities at risk, businesses at risk, infrastructure at risk. We absolutely need to ensure with changing weather patterns, increased rainfall and further flooding, we need to make sure our communities, that people across the country are safe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And on behalf of residents in flood-prone West Worcestershire who approached Storm Claudia with trepidation, I would like to convey our sympathies to people in Monmouthshire, because it is one of the most terrible things that can happen to a community to experience a flood like this. And as the Minister has the flooding minister seated beside her, could she ask her colleague to follow up with the Environment Agency? They have 2 projects they're working on in West Worcestershire, in Sevenoaks and Tenbury Wells, to improve flood resilience, and I would love it if she would give the Environment Agency a nudge to complete that work.
Well, thank you to the member, and I think my colleague has heard that loudly and clearly, and we'll get back to you.
Cameron Thomas.
Mr. Speaker. There are few around the country more equipped to empathise with the people of Monmouthshire than my people in Tewkesbury and North Gloucestershire. Will the Secretary of State join me in thanking the volunteers of the Severn Area Rescue Association who were called out, as they so often are this weekend? Will she also tell me when her department will respond to the Environmental Audit Committee's report into flood resilience in England? Thank you.
Yeah. I thank the member for raising this and for his words towards the people of Monmouthshire. And also, you know, I pay tribute to his communities. It's important that we support communities wherever they are, right across the country. This government is intent on doing that.
Well, Francois.
Thanks, Steve. Although I'm not a Welsh MP, I'd like to express my sympathies for what the people of Monmouthshire are going through. In 2014, when I was the Armed Forces Minister in the MOD, I spent weeks in Cobra meetings helping to coordinate military assistance with the severe flooding in the West Country, particularly on the Somerset level. So can I offer a suggestion? We all hope that this will not happen again, certainly not quickly, but if there are further named storms, has the Minister, or indeed the First Minister, considered speaking to the Ministry of Defence about military aid to the civil authorities, so-called MACA arrangements? Because we learnt in 2014 there are some specialist units like the Royal Marines or the Royal Engineers who have capabilities to offer in these circumstances that can really make a difference to local people. Is that something she and the First Minister might at least be prepared to consider?
Well, I thank the honourable member for raising that. And of course, where there are critical incidents, where there are major incidents such as the flooding in Monmouthshire, we are ready to consider anything. So, and where we need that support, the collaboration is important, and that it extends to all of our departments and in every way possible. We will ensure that people, that businesses, that infrastructure is looked after, and that it can and would extend to defence if necessary. Thank you.
Dr. Ellicott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My heart goes out to the people of Monmouthshire, which is just downriver from my own constituency of North Herefordshire. Terrible damage done. Also in South Herefordshire, places like US Harold very badly affected. We know these things are happening more frequently and more severely. It's also tragic to see the huge amount of soil that is washed off the land at times like this. Does the Minister recognise the hugely important role that farmers play in managing floodwater, building resilience to these sorts of events? And will she invest more in nature-friendly farming, river-friendly farming, to help prevent these sorts of disasters that do so much damage to people's livelihoods?
Well, I thank the member for raising that point, and it is exceptionally important for those who have a duty to their land to manage that land safely and ensure, you know, this does have a devastating impact. Soil is washed away, but there are things that can be done further upstream to prevent flooding. And I know that the Welsh Government has put in place projects right across Wales to ensure that that happens. And just this morning, I was talking to Powys about some of those taking place up in Powys County Council.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Floodre's report earlier this year highlighted that in the face of more extreme weather, more frequent flooding, many insurers are increasing excesses and premiums, often to eye-watering levels, or withdrawing insurance support altogether. So what immediate support is the government putting in place for people who find themselves without insurance?
There is an emergency initiative, financial initiative that is available. So the Welsh Government officials are working with the community groups, with the local council and with ourselves to ensure that they have access to those emergency funds.
Yeah. That completes the urgent question. Front bench changeover. We now come to the 10-minute rule bill. Peter Swallow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to make provision about the penalties for driving without insurance, to require the Secretary of State to prepare and publish a report containing an assessment of the effectiveness of existing measures of enforcing the law on driving without insurance, and for connected purposes. In preparing this 10-minute rule bill, I've had the opportunity to speak with so many incredible organisations and charities working to deliver better road safety. And right from the outset, I want to thank particularly Brake, Protect Young Drivers, the Motor Insurers Bureau, Thames Valley Police and the fantastic Road Safety Foundation, who are based in my own Bracknell constituency. I'm delighted to be bringing forward this bill during Road Safety Week, which raises awareness about the importance of safer driving at a time of year when dark nights come down earlier, fog and icy conditions can increase hazards. We even had snow today, and the temptation to drink and drive is heightened by the festivities. I'm proud that this government has committed to delivering a national road safety strategy, and I'm grateful for the Roads Minister for taking the time to speak with me on several occasions about the progress of developing this strategy. Remarkably, it will be the first update to national road safety in well over a decade. Where the previous government failed to act, we will, because every accident, every death on our roads is a tragedy, and too often an avoidable one. Mr. Speaker, last month I published my road safety report, which captured the real concerns of Bracknell Forest residents regarding road safety in our community. I want to thank the almost 500 constituents who responded to this campaign and shared their views on everything from speeding and antisocial driving to the illegal use of off-road bikes and scooters. I'm honoured to be able to discuss this report here today to ensure that the voices of Bracknell residents are heard and acted upon, making our roads safer for drivers, pedestrians and cyclists alike. Vitally, I've shared a copy of my report with the Roads Minister so that Bracknell Forest's voice can be heard at the heart of the upcoming National Road Safety Strategy. The findings of this report revealed a critical level of concern among residents and calls for tougher action on antisocial driving. The overwhelming issue which residents felt affected road safety was speeding, followed by off-road bikes and e-scooters. Almost 80% of residents either agreed strongly or just agreed that people drive too quickly down residential roads in Bracknell Forest, with similar figures for speeding on main roads. To tackle this, residents agreed there should be more speed cameras and community speed watch initiatives, and called for more appropriate speed limits, speed bumps and more visible police patrols, with police providing more information to local patrols so that residents can see how their concerns are being addressed. The report identifies a clear public mandate for decisive intervention on road safety, prioritising enforcement and infrastructure upgrades. Concerns were also raised about overly bright car headlights, and I'm delighted that the government has already listened on this point and announced further research will be conducted into headlight glare. Residents also supported more action around schools, where there were particular concerns that an accident was simply waiting to happen. I heard about the challenges caused by pick-up and drop-off time, the need for more safe crossing points, and the widespread support for the implementation of school streets. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased that I've been able to share this directly with the local council and offer them my full support as they work to address road safety around schools. And residents also raised concerns about potholes, which can cause damage to vehicles and lead to unsafe driving as motorists do their best to swerve around them. That's why I back the government's £3.3 million investment into Bracknell Forest roads this year, with Bracknell Forest Council committing an extra £5 million over 4 years to pothole repair and other road maintenance. When we're designing road safety initiatives, and indeed roads themselves, it's vital that we listen to experts, which is why I want to highlight the work of the fantastic organisation based in Bracknell, the Road Safety Foundation. When I met with the Road Safety Foundation, they emphasised to me how important it was that speed limits reflect the purpose of roads and the vulnerability of those users that they support. By mapping the risk on major roads across the UK, the Road Safety Foundation plays an essential role in driving road safety improvements and ultimately saving lives. Mr. Speaker, let me now turn to the subject at hand, uninsured drivers. Sadly, uninsured driving is all too common. Every 20 minutes, someone is the victim of an uninsured or hit-and-run driver. Every 4 minutes, an uninsured vehicle is seized. And every year, uninsured drivers cost the UK economy £1 billion. A crackdown on uninsured drivers on our roads is essential to improving road safety, as data has shown that those who drive uninsured are often disproportionately involved in road accidents and also more likely to commit offences which put others at risk, such as hit-and-run incidents, speeding and driving under the influence. The economic cost of uninsured driving, which includes compensation for victims, emergency services and medical costs and loss of productivity, is significant. This is a question of fairness. We cannot allow the costs of those who flout the law to be shouldered by honest drivers who are paying hiked premium fees to cover this. Mr. Speaker, I want you to imagine for a second that you were involved in a car accident. Imagine an inconsiderate driver has been going too fast or not paying attention to the road and has crashed into you. You're standing there on the roadside, perhaps injured, your car a write-off. You're feeling incredibly shaken, as anyone would be. But thank goodness you have insurance. Now, Mr. Speaker, imagine you find out that the other driver is not insured. Suddenly, a stressful situation becomes so much worse. The victims of accidents involving uninsured drivers often face delays and complications in securing compensation, which only exacerbates the immense emotional and financial toll on these victims. I recently met with the Motor Insurers Bureau to hear about Operation Drive Insured, a week-long UK campaign with the National Police Chiefs Council that saw police forces increase their operational activity in tackling uninsured driving. This involved identifying and removing uninsured vehicles from the road, as well as an excellent public awareness campaign. During our conversation, the MIB highlighted the need for a real-time database of all uninsured drivers, which would make it easier for police to catch those driving uninsured. At the moment, it's far too easy for criminals to take out fake insurance under assumed names and present that to police on the roadside because insurers don't update the National Insurance Database in real time. Insurers also don't always carry out checks to verify insurers' identities and ensure they have not been disqualified from driving. Mr. Speaker, I've even heard how some uninsured drivers are now using AI to create fake policies when pulled over by the police, making it more difficult for police to clamp down on uninsured driving in real time as they struggle to instantly verify the legitimacy of these documents on the roadside. Those forging or deliberately fabricating such documents through AI or any other means are putting other road users at risk and must face tough sanctions. The Motor Insurers Bureau estimates that there are 1 million uninsured drivers on our roads, a figure which suggests that existing penalties are not providing a serious enough disincentive. A fixed penalty notice for owning a car without insurance starts at just £100, which rises to £300 and 6 points on your licence if you're caught actually driving it. Police also have the power to seize and crush the vehicle. But given the serious consequences that can result from driving uninsured, Mr. Speaker, my view is that these penalties should be increased. Cracking down on the number of uninsured drivers will also help to tackle high insurance premiums, because claims made against uninsured drivers are made through the MIB and ultimately paid for through mandatory annual contributions from all UK motor insurers. If we can reduce the number of those driving uninsured, we can reduce costs for the vast majority of drivers who do the right thing and insure their vehicles. Insurance premiums rose on average by 21% between 2022 and 2024, before falling by around £50 this year. So can I welcome the action the government has taken through the Motor Insurance Task Force to tackle the high cost of driving for the honest many? Mr. Speaker, this Road Safety Week, let us all commit ourselves to taking the action needed to make driving safer for everyone, prevent crashes and save lives. Let's tackle the costly problem of uninsured motorists, deliver on our manifesto commitment to an ambitious national road safety strategy, and back the drivers of Great Britain. Thank you.
That the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. Not yet. The question is that the honourable member have leave to bring in the bill. As many of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Who will prepare to bring in the bill?
Sarah Russell, Chris Vince, Rachel Taylor, Josh Newbury, Kat Eccles and myself, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. Peter Swallow.
Driving without insurance, penalties and enforcement bill.
Second reading what day?
Friday the 29th of May.
Friday the 29th of May. Well done. Programme motion to be... Point of order.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I seek your guidance on an important matter of national security. This morning, the Secretary of State for Defence gave a speech on television, I think it was in Downing Street, not in the House, about a very serious incident where he says a Russian spy ship has tried to blind British military pilots with lasers. This is very important. There's been no statement in the House. We've not been briefed. I wonder if you can give any clarification on this matter.
It has not been brought to my attention either. What I would say is I hope the Treasury bench is listening. I take it very seriously. Defence of our realm should always come first to this House. And what I would say is that I will always make arrangement for whether it's a Secretary of State to make a statement to this House on very important matters. I can say at this point, it's been heard. Who knows? Let us see. Yesterday, the government reflected and came with a statement late. Let us see if it can be reflected again today on this very important matter. If it was good enough for a TV interview, it's certainly good enough for this House to know. I will leave it at that. Programme motion to be moved formally.
Back to move.
The questions as on the order paper as many in their opinion say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The clerk will now proceed to read the orders of the day.
Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill, consideration of Lord's amendments.
I can inform the House that nothing in the Lord's amendments... Sorry, I wanted the whip to say now, didn't I?
I beg to move.
Yeah. I can inform the House that nothing in the Lord's amendment engages Commons financial privilege, which will begin with the government motion to disagree with the Lords in their Amendment 37. With which it will be convenient to consider all other Lords' amendments as on the selection and grouping paper. We now call Minister Norris to move.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I beg to move that this House disagrees with Lords' Amendment 37. The Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill has returned to this House in good order. A number of amendments were made in the other place, all but one as government amendments. Throughout the passage of the bill to date, the strength of feeling about the importance of a properly functioning immigration system, which is controlled and managed so that the system is fair and works for the people of this country, has been evident. Proper enforcement and respect for the rules is crucial to that. And as discussed in this place on Monday, the government's new asylum policy statement sets out significant reforms to the UK's asylum and illegal migration system to restore order, control, fairness and public confidence in this system. And that statement builds on the measures in this bill in front of us today, our consideration of which returns our focus to the core objectives of this bill. This bill will strengthen UK border security. It's part of a serious, credible plan to protect our borders, seeing this government work closely with our international partners upstream and in our near neighbourhood. It's a plan that sees this government bringing to bear the powers and impact of the system as a whole under the leadership of Border Security Command against those who seek to undermine the UK's border security. It's a plan that delivers for our law enforcement partners, creating the new powers they need to intervene faster and earlier against more of those involved in serious and organised immigration crime activity, providing for better data sharing and creating stronger intelligence to inform enforcement activity, and a plan that disrupts the sales pitch spun by the gangs who preventing illegal working in sectors not currently required to confirm whether a person's immigration status disqualifies them from working. So to turn to the amendments in front of us today, I'll firstly start with the non-government amendment passed by the other place. Lord's Amendment 37, tabled by the opposition in the other place, is in our view unnecessary. It would mandate the Home Secretary to collate and publish statistics on the number of overseas students who have had their student visas revoked as a result of the commission of criminal offences, the number of overseas students who have been deported following the revocation of their visas, and the number of overseas students detained pending deportation following the revocation of their student visas. Now, it's first worth emphasising, Mr Speaker, that the government strongly values the vital economic and academic contributions that international students make in the UK. They enrich our communities, including my own, in the City of Nottingham.
And the immigration rules provide, though, for the cancellation of entry clearance and permission to enter or stay where a person has been convicted of a criminal offence in the UK or indeed overseas. And where a student's permission is cancelled, as a person without leave to enter or remain, they are liable to administrative removal from the UK, and foreign nationals who commit a crime should be in no doubt that the law will be enforced, and where appropriate we will pursue their deportation. On the specifics of this amendment around publishing data on these topics, the Home Office, of course, already publishes data on a vast amount of migration statistics. I'm not going to be able to say statistics on multiple occasions, I warn colleagues, including information on visas, returns and detention. So the official statistics published by the Home Office are kept under review in line with the Code of Practice for Statistics, taking into account a number of factors, including user needs, the resources required to compile those numbers, as well as the quality and availability of data. And this ensures we balance the production of high-quality statistics against the need for new ones to support the public understanding on migration. However, I want to be very clear from this dispatch box that we recognise there is heightened interest from parliamentarians, from the media, from members of the public in learning more about the number and type of criminal offences committed by foreign nationals in the UK, and about what happens when foreign national offenders, what happens to them after they've been convicted and after they've perhaps completed their sentences. We are looking very closely as a Home Department on what more can be done to both improve the processes for collating and verifying the relevant data on the topic of FNOs and their offences, and to establish a more regular means of placing that data into the public domain alongside the other Home Office statistics that I talk about. And when this work progresses, we propose to publish more detailed statistical reporting on FNOs subject to deportation and those returned to countries outside of the UK. And I hope on that basis that right honourable and honourable members will support the motion relating to Amendment 37 in the Government's name. I'll now turn to the Lord's amendments that were brought by the Government in the other place. And our first set of amendments further strengthens and expands the powers and offences that target organised immigration crime groups. The most significant of these is Lord's Amendment 7, which introduces a new offence that criminalises the creation or publication of material relating to unlawful immigration services online on internet services, including social media and messaging platforms. Such material will be considered criminal where the person knows or suspects that the material will be published on an internet service and has the purpose or will have the effect of promoting unlawful immigration services. And the policy objective, I hope, is clear for colleagues, but it is crucial. That's to tackle the facilitation of organised crime online and to ensure that law enforcement has those appropriate tools to break down organised crime groups' exploitation of the online environment, including social media. Lord's Amendments 8, 9, 12, 13, 14 and 15 work alongside this new offence, providing intermediary liability protections for internet service providers, meaning they're not impacted by this offence, and the actions of those being targeted in this offence, namely the individuals who are promoting those unlawful services, that is the target for the offence. The offence will have an extraterritorial effect and therefore may be applied to online material created or published anywhere in the world and by a person or body of any nationality. Looking next at amendments to our core immigration crime offences that were set out in clauses 13 and 14 of the bill, which concerns the supply and handling of articles used in immigration crime, Lord's Amendments 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 and 11 enable us to disrupt the actions of not only those who commit offences directly, but of those who facilitate them through the provisions of tools, materials or services. And this is to send a clear and unequivocal message, Mr. Speaker. Those who enable immigration crime, I'll give way in a second, whether through direct action or indirect facilitation, will face consequences. I'll give way.
Forgive me, I thought that this bill, when it was introduced, was the ultimate in horrors in their attempt to outdo reform, but we find it was just a mere aperitif compared to the main course of the horrors of this week. But on these specific measures, does he not see the impact that this might have on support agencies and services that are there to assist refugees and asylum seekers? Did he not listen to the many representations he had by these groups and the difficulties that this will now cause them?
Well, I have to I am surprised the Honourable Gentleman is horrified by our attempts to crack down on organised immigration crime, which is the ultimate industry in profiting from misery and desperation that leads to vulnerable people losing their lives and, of course, has such impact on public confidence domestically. However, on the point that he makes, if he waits a little while longer, I hope I can give him a degree of succour on that point. But we are making that the purpose of the amendments that have been made here to seek to criminalise those who are concerned in supplying relevant articles for use in immigration crime, and will bring into scope possession with intent to supply or making the offer to supply such an article, and it also brings into scope those who are concerned in the handling of a relevant article for use in immigration crime. And I'll get to the Honourable Gentleman's points shortly, but firstly, just on the amendments 16 to 32 on electronic devices, and this strengthens the powers of search and seizure in relation to electronic devices. Lord's Amendment 16 seeks to expand the definition of authorised officer to include Police Services of Scotland, Police Service of Northern Ireland and National Crime Agency officers. Lord's Amendment 17 to 32 ensure that these officers have the relevant safeguards, protections and legal clarities when utilising the powers, as well as consequential changes. Now, Lord's Amendments 5, 6, 38, 39 and 40 were tabled in response to the Joint Committee on Human Rights report on the bill and debate in the other place, ensuring proportionate, robust and appropriate safeguards are in place. So Lord's Amendments 5 and 6 introduce additional safeguards into the offences set out in clauses 13 and exempt from these offences any item or substance designed for personal cleanliness or for hygiene. So this includes items like soap, toothpaste, sanitary products and other essentials that individuals may carry for personal dignity and well-being. I hope that gives the Honourable Gentleman a degree of comfort on that point. Limitations to this exemption have been set out if certain items present heightened risk of being repurposed as weapons or used in ways that endanger others. And I think that finds the appropriate balance on this important point. In relation to the provision in the bill which enables stronger conditions to be placed on those who pose a threat pending their removal, Lord's Amendments 38, 39 and 40 do not alter the original intention of the clause, but intend to set out on the face of the bill the limited circumstances in which an individual could have conditions such as electronic monitoring or curfews placed on their leave to enter or remain, and this includes cases where the Secretary of State considers that that person poses a threat to national security, public safety, or has been convicted of a serious crime or sexual offence. And finally, Mr Speaker, we've made a number of small amendments in the other place which seek to clarify the provisions with which they relate to. Lord's Amendments 33, 34 and 35 are minor and technical to remove references to data protection legislation, which is now redundant following the enactment of Section 106 of the Data Use and Access Act 2025. Lord's Amendment 36 amends the consultation requirements to require that the Secretary of State consults the Department of Justice in Northern Ireland and relevant Scottish ministers prior to making regulations that determine the purpose for which trailer registration information may be shared with the police. This amendment does not affect the Secretary of State's discretion to consult representatives of police bodies. I'll give way on that point.
Can I just
Could I just suggest you've literally just walked in, and I don't think you've heard all what has been said. I think it's rather unfair, and I don't expect people to come in and do that. And you should know better, in fairness, Minister.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Before I move on that point, I would give assurance to any colleagues, particularly colleagues from Northern Ireland, that we are talking closely. He knows well from our many discussions on this topic of how much I value my relationships with colleagues in the Northern Ireland Executive. I met with a number on Monday, and I will continue to do so to make sure that the applications in this provision and beyond are as good as possible and work seamlessly across all parts of the United Kingdom. I hope that gives a degree of comfort. And then finally, Mr Speaker, Lord's Amendments 41 and 42 relate to Clause 62 of the bill, which is the commencement clause itself, for Clause 42, which provides legal clarity for EU citizens and their family members with EUSS status who are in scope of the withdrawal agreement that is the source of their rights in the UK. The amendments change the commencement provision so that it is now brought into force on royal assent to provide legal certainty as soon as possible for all EU citizens and their family members with EUSS status as to their rights in the UK. So to finish, Mr Speaker, this is a really important bit of legislation. The work done down the other end was excellent, and I must commend and reference my right honourable friend, the noble Lord Flint, for his work, but colleagues across the House, across that place, worked very hard to improve this legislation, which we appreciate, and on that basis I beg to move the amendments in the Government's name.
The question is that the House disagrees with the Lords in Amendment 37. Shadow Minister Matt Vickers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The opposition joins the Minister in thanking our colleagues in the other place for their work and scrutiny of this bill. I'd like to thank my colleagues, Lord Cameron and Lord Davies, as well as numerous members of the other place, including Lord Jackson, for their work. The subject of this bill is extremely important to this country and to our future. I'm afraid, Mr Speaker, the reality is that under this Labour government, illegal immigration has got much, much worse. We're in the grip of an immigration crisis. Small boat crossings have surged. They're up 55% against the same period before the election. In the 9 months before the election, the number of people in hotels had gone down by 47%. But since this government came to power, they've gone up. This country is our home. It's not a hotel. We need stronger borders to make sure that those who come to our country share our values, contribute to society, and are not simply a drain on the resources that taxpayers fund. This bill removes powers that allow us to detain and deport people who arrive here illegally. It removes powers that allow us to mandate scientific age tests on those who arrive here illegally, claiming to be children. It allows people who break into our country illegally to become British citizens. Those who break into our country should not be allowed to stay. This week, the Home Secretary announced a new plan which she says will tackle the immigration crisis. Lord's Amendment 37 proposes to make transparent one of the key parts of the high immigration that the government says it wants to reduce. Transparency matters for public trust and accountability. Opposition to this amendment is completely at odds with the rhetoric and the action the Home Secretary promised us earlier this week. Once again, the ambition of this bill has been nowhere near as radical as needed to stop these dangerous crossings in their tracks. The government should be using every tool available to control immigration and make our country safer. I appreciate that there are members in this House who question why this amendment is necessary. As my noble friend Lord Jackson said in the other place, when he had sought to obtain information from the government on the number of foreign students who had their visas revoked and had been deported because of criminal activity, he faced a series of non-answers from the department. The minister representing the government during the report stage of the debate acknowledged that without proper information on this and a number of other matters, it's very difficult to have an informed public debate. We must do what we can to mandate a wider array of information to be published. If the government already have this data, then the natural question is, why not publish it? I should also stress that this amendment is not aimed at the vast majority of those individuals who study hard in the UK and contribute to society, but the minority who abuse that privilege. Without this data, how can the public have trust? How can we have a proper debate about the issue of foreign criminals in our country? Records of the number of people arriving in the country illegally and disputing their age was previously published, but has been hidden since the government came to power. Why is that? This week, the government looked like it was beginning to make a start on overhauling our asylum system. The current situation is not tenable. But as is always the case, they're bold on rhetoric and weak on action. Whether it's on economic growth, policing, energy, or here today on asylum, they say one thing and their actions achieve the exact opposite. The Conservative Party will not stand in the way of amendments which give transparency to the public and give greater powers to ministers to tackle the issue of illegal immigration head-on. I say to the Minister, he needs all the powers he can get to tackle our broken immigration system. That's why the Conservative Party will vote against this motion today.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank the Home Office Minister for his comments earlier on. When I speak to voters in Halesowen, in Cradley Heath and in Quarry Bank, the message they have for me is clear. They are very concerned about illegal immigration, and they do want the Labour Party to secure our borders. And of course, this was in our manifesto commitment because there is nothing progressive about allowing smuggling gangs to take people across Europe and to see children drowning in the Channel. So I welcome this bill, and I welcome the Home Secretary's tough measures that she announced on Monday. But I did want to talk in particular to the Lord's Amendments 7 and 9 and 12 to 15 that we're talking about today. These are mostly about criminalising the advertising and marketing of illegal migration actions that happen online and often conducted by smuggling gangs. And of course, there are lots of reasons why people will be fleeing countries, seeking refuge in other countries. It might be conflict, it might be persecution, it might be peace. Yes, please.
Speaker, first of all, can I thank the Honourable Gentleman for what he's saying. And I do welcome the thrust of what government's trying to do, what the Minister is saying. What we do have to ensure there's a bit of muscle behind the legislation which is called. I think that's what the Minister is referring to. I think that's what the Honourable Gentleman is referring to as well. Lord Weir of the other place, my colleague, was very clear from our point of view in the legislation we're putting forward, that point of view. But does he share my concern? I think the Honourable Gentleman does. Those who flee persecution, those across the world that flee because of their human rights and their persecution that they face and have nowhere to go, they can never go back to that country again. I know some of those ones in Newton Ours in my constituency in Strangford. I came maybe 8 years ago. The 6 Syrian families are still there. They're established in the community. And does he share my concern that those who flee persecution must be protected within this legislation? Thank you.
No, he doesn't. I thank him for his intervention. And yes, of course, we are a compassionate country. We are a place of refuge for many people that are fleeing persecution and other issues. And I think everything that the government has announced this week, and indeed in the bill that we're talking about today, allows us to be compassionate, but allows us to be tough on those smuggling gangs that are trying to take people into this country on very dangerous journeys, on routes that are in no way compassionate at all. I was talking about some of the things that people are fleeing from conflict, fleeing from poverty, and I've spoken in other debates about how it's important for the Foreign Office to invest in conflict resolution, to invest in conflict prevention, to work to mitigate many of the challenges that people are fleeing from. But that does not excuse the smuggling gangs that are operating for profit, does not excuse these organisations that are marketing these dangerous journeys, often on Facebook, on Instagram, on WhatsApp or Telegram, to sell a service which essentially smuggles people not just to safety, but smuggles them across continents on very dangerous journeys. And I was very pleased to see Amendment 8, which does talk about cracking down on the online marketing and the online advertising of these smuggling gangs. So I'm very pleased to see that we have some tough new criminal measures that we can use against them. And I do understand the need for that liability to not be placed on the platform providers, but I would be interested if the Minister could say a little bit about how we're going to work with those platforms if we do see illegal crimes being advertised, smuggling gangs advertising routes, selling illegal work opportunities and the like, to ensure that this legislation is effective. I did also want to talk to Amendments 12 and 13, which are about ensuring that we crack down on these things that don't just happen in the UK, of course. If you're advertising smuggling opportunities, it's likely that you may be based in Europe, may be based overseas in the Middle East. And I think it's important that our legislation is extended so that we can go after, where possible, those gangs who are operating outside the UK as well. So I do welcome that change. So in summary, I just had a couple of amendments, a couple of points on these amendments. I think it's an excellent bill. I support these amendments. I think it's very important that we use all the powers that we do have to go after the smuggling gangs. And this is an important step. And I'm very pleased that we're building on it with what the Home Secretary announced earlier this week.
Spokesperson Will Faster.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Liberal Democrats and I want to stop small, dangerous small boat crossings. We want to stop the smuggling gangs and bring them to justice. The former Conservative government failed to do either. My constituents in Woking and people across the country need this government to deliver a compassionate, effective and fair immigration and asylum system. If this government thought that this bill and the amendments were enough to do that, the Home Secretary would not have come to this House on Monday to deliver a statement to announce another raft of immigration packages. I will give way.
Very grateful to the honourable gentleman. He, like myself and several others in the chamber, spent hours and hours in committee considering these very measures, only for this week the Home Secretary to come along and trumpet with even more harsher measures. Does he feel like me, that we almost were wasting our time considering things which are only going to be superseded by the Home Secretary?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I want to thank my honourable friend from Perth and Kinrossshire for his comments. He and I and others worked really hard on the Bill Committee, proposing humanitarian visa amendments, trying to lift the ban on asylum seekers working, both of which would have made things better for taxpayers here and vulnerable refugees as well. And sadly, we were not listened to then, and we will continue. If I can finish this first response to the intervention first. Sadly, we were not listened to in that Bill Committee. I hope we're listened to if we have the pleasure or unfortunate duty to serve on the next Bill Committee. I believe there's another intervention.
Gentlemen, for giving way. Since we all sat on that Bill Committee, the government has announced a one-in, one-out deal with France, and then this week new safe routes as part of the new package. The one-in, one-out deal, the one-in is a safe route, and the new safe and other safe routes for